gorgeous and sexy creature, whether we have met or not. I really mean that. You are a gorgeous and sexy creature. I mean you, the person I'm talking to through the camera right now. Hello and welcome. This is Practice Intimacy. This is a place to learn all about love, sex, and relationships. And I am Jamie Lynn. I am a marriage and family therapist in the Austin area, and I am coming to you today with information about relational stages. These are the ways that I think about relational stages. But before we get started, a couple of things. One, if you are here for the first time, welcome. I am really trying to create an online space where people can get education about relationships, particularly romantic partnerships, because most of us don't actually learn much about how to be in a committed relationship with someone we care about in a way that's relationally healthy, super turned on and sexy, and also promoting your and their personal growth and development. And so that's really what this whole channel is about. This is about helping you to become an amazing partner and helping you to become the sort of person who values yourself enough that you find a relationship that really supports the life that you're hoping for, the love that you're hoping for. So if that's you, welcome. And remember to subscribe to my channel if you want more content like this. Hit the like button if you enjoy this video. Let's get started. So, relational stages. It is helpful to know this information partly because we can get a little bit uncertain and scared whenever relationships don't go as we're expecting them to. I hear a train in the background. I'm so sorry if you can hear that. I'm recording at a different time than normal. What you gonna do? Relational stages can kind of freak people out, especially because most of us, because it feels so good, love the beginning stages of relationship, and then we start to get anxious and scared as the relationship lasts a longer time and gets more comfortable, dare I say, boring sometimes. A lot of people freak out whenever this happens, myself included, hello. And so I really want to bring just a little bit of education about different stages you might move through in a relationship and how you can do so gracefully, how you can move through these stages without being shocked or freaked out or feeling like you're doing something wrong because the relationship has changed. Okay, I'm gonna list them first. In my mind, there are tons of different models. There are different people who talk about stages of relationship development. But in my mind, I categorize the different stages of relationship into 7 broad areas, and then there are smaller areas underneath that. Today, we're just going to cover the broad ones. So let me just list those, and then we'll go in depth into each one. When I think of the broad areas, I think of them as the initial interest, the infatuation stage, the honeymoon period, the disillusionment stage, the reckoning stage, commitment stage, and then finally acceptance. So this is fun. Most of us love the beginning of relationship and struggle as relationship continues. That's just true for most people. That's not true for everyone. Some people don't actually enjoy the initial sparks, getting to know each other, interest phase because it feels uncomfortable to them, and they prefer the more committed, stable, now we know each other, this feels so good to relax into each other phase. So as you're listening, just kind of pay attention to your own system. Which stages of relationship do you feel most drawn to? Do you feel most excited in? And which stages do you tend to have a little bit more trouble sinking into and feeling good about those stages? So let's start with the first one, interest. Before you even meet a person, usually what happens, this isn't true for everyone, but most people, there's this moment where you see someone, or in one of my best friend's cases, heard their name and just had this internal like, ooh, that person is interesting to me. I want to know more. This is the initial interest phase. And during this phase, our seeking system is turned on. The part of our brain that wants to move towards is like, ooh, something interesting is happening over there. And what we're mainly doing during this phase is trying to gauge whether or not the other person is also interested. And we do this many different ways. Some people are super forward and they're going to immediately ask for your number, or you might be the super forward one and you might immediately ask other people for their phone number, or like, hey, you want to go on a date? Awesome, totally fine. That's a great way to be out in the world. That's not everyone. Some people are a little bit more shy and they'll take their time trying to gauge interest. So it's talking to, flirting a little bit, maybe being too shy to flirt even, but just knowing that you're interested. All of this is totally fine. This is a great way to move through this initial phase of relationship. Eventually, once you gauge whether or not they're interested, once you determine, is this person going to be a friend? Are they going to be someone I date? Do I even like them once I actually get to know them? Then you move on to the next stage, which would be the infatuation stage. Both people are really excited. Both people have their seeking system turned on and they're moving towards and trying to find out more about this person. And generally, the feeling in this stage is one of curiosity, excitement, anticipation, hopefulness. And physiologically, what's going on is you're getting huge amounts of dopamine during this phase. When I think about the primary emotional system that's running during this phase of relationship, it's all seeking system. It's all about moving towards seeing if it's going to be something good, feeling the anticipation of, ooh, I really like this person. This might be amazing. So next, after infatuation, comes a period of time that most people call the honeymoon phase. This could last months, this could last a year, this could last even longer if you don't see each other very often. I'm thinking about like long distance relationships where people get to see each other less frequently. But in all honesty, the honeymoon phase does not last that long, considering how long a relationship can last. The honeymoon phase, there isn't really research on this, but I would imagine about a year would be tops for most relationships. Some people it'd be a couple of months, depending on how much time you're spending with each other. But for most people, it's going to be close to a year. During the honeymoon phase, here's what's happening. There's two things happening, really. One is that the person and you are both attempting to present your best self. There's still a little bit of that infatuation going on. You're still trying to show up in a way that you believe will be appealing for the other person because you're excited, you're turned on, you're joyful about being with them, being near them. And so you show up a little bit differently. That might mean dressing up. That might mean going out on dates that are new and exciting. That might mean talking to them and learning about them and asking them lots of questions. And so really one part of what's going on in the honeymoon phase is you're showing up as your best, most engaged self. The other thing that's happening during the honeymoon phase is in your mind, you're also creating a mental image of who the other person is. You're projecting onto them this idea of who they are based on what you want in a partner. And that may or may not be who they actually are. Often we are hopeful, optimistic creatures in some ways, especially whenever it comes to our own happiness and satisfaction. And so we look at people with a hope that they're going to meet our needs and desires. And we might even project onto them, ooh, this person is all the things I've been looking for, yay! So both of these things are happening during the honeymoon phase. We're showing up as our best self, and we're projecting onto the other person an idealized picture of who we want as a partner. One last thing that's important to talk about, this comes from some research that haunts me at night occasionally, but most of the time I'm in a place now where I feel very accepting of it and even like, oh, okay, that feels good to me. It's taken a lot of work for me to get here. So in the research, they did this wonderful study where they had people who had just met each other and who were really in love. They'd been together for only a few weeks. They had these people come and do brain scans as they were seeing a picture of their beloved. And the spike of dopamine that you receive in that moment, whenever you get the little flash, it's so fast that you're not even registering that you saw that person's face. You're picking it up subconsciously. but the amount of dopamine that's released in your brain is insane. It's almost like some of these people were doing coke. And so during the honeymoon and infatuation phase, every time you see this person, there's so much joy and excitement and just like, yay, passion. It feels so good. Dopamine is a feel-good neurotransmitter. And so we have these moments of like, woo, with this person. And the story most of us make up about that to ourselves is that this person is like the best, the end-all be-all, absolutely the most important love we will ever have, which could be true. And also, it's not always going to be like that, because our brain starts getting used to what is normal in our life rather than novel, and we don't get the same dopamine release that we had before. And so whenever they do the same brain scan with people who've been in relationship with their beloved for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, the picture flashes, and what they have light up in their brain is the anterior cingulate, which often deals more with like compassion, empathy, feeling close to, feeling comfy and stable, all good things, all wonderful things. And some people actually prefer that in relationship. I'm thinking of my best friend again, totally prefers that, loves what she calls the married life, of like, we finally know each other, we can relax. Whereas me, I tend to like the passion experience, the dopamine high of the early stages of relationship, and then I start to get anxious and bored and freaked out whenever things settle into stability and comfort. Something you can work on. I can speak from my own experience and also working with clients. That is something you can work on. But know that about yourself. Which one are you drawn to? Which one feels better in your nervous system? Is it the excitement, or is it the stability, comfort, now we know each other experience? All of that was kind of a tangent. Let's keep going. So that was the honeymoon phase, where people are showing up as their best selves, projecting onto the other person who we think they are, maybe not who they actually are. And then eventually, after some period of time, could be a year, could be 2 years, could be 3 years, who knows? Most likely it's going to be around a year. We move into this phase that I think of as the disillusionment phase, where all the illusions we've created about who this person is and what they're going to be in our life and how they're going to complete us starts to fall away. And the reason it does that is because partly the novelty has worn off and we're both a little less excited. Things are feeling familiar and stable and kind of like boring sometimes. Not bad, but just not neurologically exciting in the same way. Although, as I say that, I'm even thinking to myself, like, no, to some people that will feel bad. To me, it felt bad. I don't like moving out of the passion stage of relationship, but if you're gonna be in a long-term committed relationship, this is part of it. Moving into more familiarity and out of passion is part of it. There's nothing wrong with that. And you can actually learn to love this too. It just requires some internal work on your end. So with disillusionment, that facade we've created about them being the perfect partner, the one we've been waiting for, the one for us who's going to fix everything, starts to break apart because we notice the differences. We are all so different, and usually what ends up happening is people find each other who are kind of opposites in some ways. I'm thinking about the attachment theory. I've talked about it in the last couple of videos. What you'll often find is people find each other who have almost complementary attachment styles. The people who are more dismissive usually end up with people who are more preoccupied. So this one's like really into connection, this one's really into being individual, and they kind of do a dance of chasing each other. Every once in a while you find people who are both distancers and they kind of drift and their work is coming back together. And then sometimes you find people who are both preoccupied and they get anxious together. And then of course the people who are more secure tend to find each other. It all just depends. But most often you'll find that couples, we tend to choose folks who are going to be similar to us in some ways and really different from us in other ways. I personally believe that's because all of us are seeking more health and more balance. And so if we find someone who's really different from us, then we're either going to find ways to start coming a little bit closer towards balance. I'll change to be a little bit more like you. You need to change to come a little bit closer to me. And eventually it'll feel good enough for both of us. That's my belief. I think that we're really trying to find balance. That said, the experience of getting there is really challenging. Being in the disillusionment, starting to recognize the differences between you and your partner, it's painful. And there can be all kinds of differences. Maybe it's little things like you're really organized and great at chores, and they're super disorganized and really messy. Or it might be bigger things like you really want to have kids, and they're not interested in that life experience. And so during this phase, we start to have more conflict. We start to feel upset. It could be sadness, it could be anger, it could be a loneliness, some kind of upset, because now we're experiencing the difference between us, the disconnection between us. Out of this stage comes a moment of reckoning. And I actually think once you hit this point in relationship, it's not a linear path, and you might cycle through these different stages multiple times. After the honeymoon stage, the rest of your relationship will be some form of the disillusionment, the reckoning, the commitment and acceptance phase over and over and over again, not necessarily in that order. So, out of the disillusionment, out of this recognition that we are different and that you aren't actually the person I had built up in my mind, comes a reckoning where I need to decide what I'm going to do. Am I going to stay with this person? Am I getting enough out of this relationship for it to really be worthwhile? Or is this not actually the right fit for me and I need to move on? I think it's important to think about this question from two angles. One angle is, will I be truly happy in this relationship? Can I grieve the things that I won't have? Can I be in acceptance and love of this person as they are, knowing they probably won't change? But also knowing that there is room for growth always. Am I getting enough out of this relationship to really make it worthwhile? And then on the other side, you need to also think about them. Can I give them true love, where I show up with the intention of loving them and accepting them and being compassionate towards them, even when it's hard? Or would it be kinder to let them go because there might be someone out there who could love them better than I do? And I think both of those questions are important. Thinking about on your end, is this enough for me? And thinking about on their end, can I really love them in the way that they deserve? Because if I'm holding back, or I know that they're asking for something that I'm not going to give or cannot give, it is kinder to let them go. So out of this phase comes a commitment stage. And people do this different ways. Commitment doesn't necessarily mean marriage, although that's how a lot of people do it in the US where I live and in other places, but it doesn't necessarily have to be marriage, just some kind of commitment, some agreement that we intend to do a specific kind of relationship together for however long. People have different agreements. I'm thinking of a beautiful story where a wife says, I'll marry you for a year, check with me in a year and I'll decide whether or not I want to be with you again. And every single year they would recommit. Is this still working? Do we still like this? I love that story. And then there are other people where it's like, no, once we commit, we know it's for life. Through thick and thin, it will always, always be us. There is no right answer here. You need to know what you want, what works for your system. And then, of course, listen to what the other person wants too. This is part of that difference again. Maybe they're going to be a little different from you. Maybe they will want more of a let's do this until it doesn't work anymore. Or maybe they're more of a, no, commitment is commitment, this is forever. Talk to them about it. After the commitment phase is a space or a stage that we move into that I think of as acceptance. I have committed to you. I'm going to make this work, or at least I'm going to try, depending on what your agreement is. And so what that means is I'm going to accept you as you are. And that doesn't mean I won't challenge you. It doesn't mean I don't want challenge back. Hopefully we'll both continue to grow and become our best selves and even better partners as this relationship continues on. But the underlying principle always is I'm going to accept you for who you are. I'm going to accept the differences between us. I'm going to do my own personal work around grieving things that I won't have if I stay with you. And I'm going to do my own personal work around cherishing you and our relationship to the best of my ability. Acceptance stage is really about coming into reality. The reality of who your partner is and what your relationship will be based on the agreements y'all have come up with. This is different than the fighting struggle that a lot of people are in, attempting to make their partner different, attempting to control the relationship, attempting to get what they want regardless of what the other person is saying and wanting. Okay, so those are the 7 stages as I think about them. This is purely just the way I view it. I could be totally wrong, who knows? Think about your own life and your own relationship. If there are stages you experience that are different from this, add them to the list, totally fine. Some things that I just wanted to kind of cover and discuss before we end is that there are some other developmental stages that I did not list because they're a little different than just a plain old trajectory of a romantic partnership. So some things that are definitely going to change your relationship would be choosing to have children. That is a developmental stage of relationship. When you decide to have children, your life will change. Your romantic partnership will change. And it will continue to change as your children grow up. And then again, it's going to change whenever your children, what do they call it? I've heard people call it launching. And then there's another word that I like even more that I can't think of right now. But when your children move out of the house, then you're going to be in a new stage of relationship with your partner. The same is true for things like retirement. If you've been working and suddenly you retire, that is a different developmental stage for your relationship. And so being curious about, okay, what's going to happen now? Maybe we might go through a honeymoon phase of being together all the time and doing adventures. Maybe we might go through a new disillusionment phase of, oh God, being around them all the time is totally different. And maybe we will need to make new commitments and accept new things about our partner as they're not working anymore. Another possible stage that I'm thinking of that a lot of my clients go through is opening up their relationship, choosing non-monogamy in some form or fashion, whether that's polyamory or swinging or hierarchical, ooh, that's hard for me today. Hierarchical, no, I don't think it's coming out right. I think you know what I mean. Having a relationship dynamic with a hierarchy that is still an open relationship. Whew. That would be another developmental stage if you choose to open your relationship. So there are many, many other possible developmental experiences you could have in your lifetime with your partner. Just kind of be curious about what have you gone through now, what might be on the horizon. All of this information is just to help you come into a space where you look at your relationship with a bit more curiosity. Ooh, there's the train again. A bit more curiosity, where we at right now, what's possible for us in the future, knowing that things could be different, knowing that things certainly will be different if you're at the beginning stage of relationship. And then also being curious about, what do I actually want with this person as I get more and more information about them. And as I get closer to them, is this relationship really the best one for me? I think one of the most painful things in couples is when people get stuck in the disillusionment reckoning phase, which this can happen, where people continually are in conflict and fighting over difference and struggling because things are challenging, and attempting to do the reckoning but never actually deciding, are we going to make this work and move into a commitment acceptance, or are we going to split up? This video is already long, so I'm not necessarily going to cover this topic here, but my suggestion, if you're in that space, if you're in more of a disillusionment, struggling with difference space of a relationship, some of the videos that you can check out would be my 5 losing strategies and my 5 winning strategies videos. Those are both really helpful for beginning to work your way out of this space you're in. And then another really good resource, this is more of a tool rather than thinking about your relationship in terms of where we're at. This is like, how do we get to the next phase? Boundaries. Boundaries, they're my favorite tool in relationship. I don't think you can be in a relationship well with yourself, with your partner, with the world, unless you have good boundaries. And I have not made any videos yet on YouTube, but there are some videos on my Instagram. And then there is a free webinar for boundaries linked below, as well as a boundaries training that I created with a phenomenal therapist named Julianne Taylor Shore that is also available below. So check those out as resources if you're wanting more tools of how to get out of the uncomfortable phase of disillusionment and reckoning. Okay, developmental stages of relationship. I hope this was fun. This was fun for me. I like talking about this kind of thing, as you know. Relationship, sex, it's the best. It's the best topic in the world, in my opinion. I guess that and personal development. Yeah, those 3 things, but they're all interconnected in my mind. They're all very similar and they tie together in different ways. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Remember to like this video, subscribe to my channel. I will see you next week.